Hello, Collateral Gaming listeners. Chazzle Dazzle here from the Trial by Error Variety Show podcast. I just wanted to take a few seconds to invite you guys over to what we do. No, it's not video games, but we do invite really awesome and unique bands from all over the world. We dig deep into their souls and find really cool stories to tell you, and there's tons of music every week, so subscribe to us wherever you subscribe to your podcast. We look forward to having you.
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Zachary Gio.
This is Collateral Gaming.
Happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome back to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything in between. And yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast, so whatever you've got, smoke it if you've got it. Today we've got something really awesome to talk about. Ash, how you doing today, buddy?
Oh, I am doing great. We are actually recording on Halloween Day, so woke up for the spooky holiday, and I'm feeling great, man. How about you?
I'm doing okay, just kind of tired and everything else. My car is in the shop, which kind of sucks. I was actually on the way to my girlfriend's house on Friday when my radiator decided to overheat. So the car's fine. It just probably needs a good flush and, some extra fluid and stuff. But it's in the shop, But that kind of bummed me out. I was looking forward to spending Halloween with her and her family. But, you win some, you lose some. And she was just as wonderful about it as ever. Danielle's awesome, dude. I can't express enough how thankful I am. But, it's fine. It's Halloween. It's spoopy season. And we are talking about one of the spoopiest games probably ever to be created. Good Lord.
Yeah. Shout out to Danielle, by the way. You are a real G.
Yeah, she is a real G. She's like the best in the world. And I love her to death. But yeah, today we are going to be talking about Outlast, the survival horror game created by Red Barrels. And honestly, this is probably one of the scariest games I've ever played in my life. Exploring a insane asylum late at night, dude. When I first saw the original trailer for this game, I was like, that is something I'm going to have to make myself play. But you know what? I'm glad I did it, and there's so much crap to talk about, and a lot of it is just horrifying to think about. So, what are your thoughts on this game so far?
Oh, man, it is super horrifying. I actually just beat it last night, finally, because the game is actually, for me, was legitimately difficult to pick up and get through sometimes because of how difficult and terrifying it was. It does get a little bit easier once you sort of figure out the patterns, but each level is completely different, and it's unexpected when you're going to come across someone that's going to be patrolling. So there's just that constant dread going on, and I love it. I love the whole the fact that you don't fight, and they let you know that the very first thing you read when you start a game is you are not a fighter. You're an investigative journalist. You have 3 options: run, hide, or die.
Yep. You literally cannot even defend yourself in this game. Your only objective is to run. You are armed solely with a camcorder, and that's about it. And the really cool thing about this game is while you can see everything from Miles' perspective, basically you are Miles Upshur. You're an investigative reporter whose ambition is about to earn him an intimate tour of hell on Earth. Always willing to risk digging into the stories no other journalist would dare investigate, you will seek out the dark secret at the heart of Mount Massive Asylum. That is the prologue to Outlast. And they are not kidding. You are literally armed only with a camcorder. And your job is to look at everything, record everything, and survive. You're hunting for batteries to keep your camera alive so that you can use night vision in super dark spaces, which in this game is the primary setting. It is dark pretty much everywhere. It's an insane asylum late at night that's been old and abandoned, but recently taken up by a new corporation. A secret corporation called the Murkoff Corporation. I believe it's the Murkoff Corporation.
Murkoff, yeah. And there are a lot of documents and lore to find that gives you some insight into Murkoff, gives you some insight into the asylum and what was going on. And I mean, that's basically what you're doing. It kind of plays like a found footage game because the game is in first person and you can raise your camera up, and I'd recommend mostly keeping your camera on for most of the game because it won't consume battery just to have it up.
No, it won't.
But as long as you're aiming at something, Miles can take notes about what's going on. And then the camera, of course, is also where the night vision mechanic comes in, and that's what you're going to need your batteries for.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that even though this is a horror game, the scariest thing about Outlast isn't even its mountain asylum setting or even things stalking you throughout the bloodied building. It's the fact that the game features a hide button. It's the fact that your primary ability in survival is to hide. Like, you can hide in cabinets. Well, I guess they wouldn't be like cabinets. They're more like lockers. But you can hide under beds, behind doors. And this game has no shortage of characters that are willing to just absolutely stalk you and rip you apart. And, you know, whether it's for a religious divine purpose or, you know, they just want to tear you to shreds. One good example of those characters is Chris Walker.
Chris Walker!
Chris Walker is this giant military-esque just madman that is basically trapped in Mount Massive, who he's big. I wouldn't call him obese. He's just a tank.
He's just a big motherfucker. He's ex-military, they mentioned in one of the documents, or in one of Miles' notes, and he is big. He has ripped his own nose and lips off.
Due to anxiety. Like, one of his aliases that always makes me laugh is just big fucking guy. You know, that or the soldier, you know, strong, fat. Those are multiple things that he's known as. But he was in the United States military. He was a former police officer, and then he became a Murkoff security guard. And
then he went insane.
He did. He went absolutely nuts and kind of just went through it. And, I mean, I guess we can talk spoilers because, you know, this game is, when did it, 2013, 2012? When did it come out?
Something like that. Let me look it up real quick. I should have had my notes ready.
Oh, dude. No, it's okay. It's okay. But he gets murdered by the Wall Rider, like, towards the end of the game while he's chasing you. And the Wall Rider is actually the main antagonist of the game, the one that ends up actually ripping Miles apart at the end of the game.
Miles was surprisingly sympathetic whenever he records that moment in the game, if you read the notes afterward. Because, I mean, Chris Walker is kind of a secondary antagonist for you in the game. I mean, he's the one that you'll face most often. And unlike other enemies, who will kill you on normal mode within, like, 4 hits or so, he'll kill you in 2.
Oh, yeah. No, he'll rip you apart.
And he will drag you out from those little alcoves. So you have to run just fast enough to escape his reach and get into those little small corridors.
Little pig. Little piggy.
Yeah, he is terrifying, and he'll go search for you. He'll talk. What's really cool is that all of the NPCs in this game work that way. The AI is actually pretty intelligent. I reckon that the second game probably expands on that a little bit, but they can see you hiding, and they will actually investigate hiding places. Thankfully, if you're in one locker and there's like a couple next to you, it seems to be that the game always has them check the locker next to you.
Oh, yeah.
But it does add to that level of fear that you're like, oh, shit. Like, they could check the locker I'm in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And honestly, Ash, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We're just kind of diving into, like, the scariest parts of the game. But Outlast itself, it tells the story of a reporter who gets a tip. Miles Upshur is the reporter.
It's 2013, by the way.
2013? Awesome. Yeah.
That's when it came out on PC.
Good Lord. 8 years this game has been out. You know, but Outlast tells the story of a reporter who gets a tip from an anonymous informant that something fishy is going on at Mount Massive Asylum. He goes there to investigate, but when he arrives and sneaks in, he realizes that all hell has already broken loose. And we're talking about Chris Walker. The first time you actually interact with him in the game is not too far. into the game. It's like maybe 5 or 10 minutes in.
Yeah.
You're exploring the second floor of the asylum, and there's like this big open room with it's like the lobby, I guess. It's the second floor, the balcony that surrounds the lobby. And you're going through this like library-esque type room with a bunch of trash and garbage on the floor when you come across a security guard or a cop or something that is impaled on a giant, it's either a pipe or a spear. I don't know what he's impaled on, but he's just...
It's dark, and even with the night vision on, you can't see quite well enough.
You know what you can see, though? Like the outline of his eyes, and that makes it even more terrifying. The atmosphere in this game is incredible for a stealth horror game. I mean, Red Barrels really did a phenomenal job. Granted, this game definitely proves to me that there are people at Red Barrels that are absolutely nuts and live for this kind of experience. I mean, the core gameplay experience is about no combat, and that's a quote directly from Red Barrel's co-founder Felipe Morin. And it's about having the player suffer. The experience is about having the player completely defenseless, only with the ability to hide, suffering as he's watching all of this happen while trying to piece together the story.
Yeah.
And, at this point, once you get in there and you realize everything's going out, it's up to the player to really decide what they want to do. But ultimately, the objective is to get the hell out.
Yeah, pretty early on, that's the objective. Like, when you start out the game, he's going to go in and investigate and figure out what's going down. But very quickly, shit goes down the drain, and he's like, no, I need to get the fuck out of here. And you spend the rest of the game trying to get the fuck out of there.
Dude, honestly, the further into the game I got, the less I wanted to leave. I wanted to see just how crazy it got, just how insane and terrifying,
Yeah.
just how terrifying it got. And it did. Dude, Outlast 2, I know we're not talking about Outlast 2, but Outlast 2 is a game that I will never play again. That game was horrific. And honestly, with Outlast 1, they really don't hold back with anything. Like the language, the violence, there's even a set of twins.
The naked twins!
The naked twins! And they're actually the most sane people in that asylum. They're just... Well, I guess they're not sane. I guess they're more just calm and collected in their insanity.
Out of all of the variants, I think they're among the only ones that will actually open doors, instead of like pounding them down, if I remember right. Traeger doesn't. I know that he just opens doors.
Yeah, but the twins themselves both appear to be like extremely calm and intelligent compared to all the other inmates, and they have some semblance of humanity left in them. I mean, for instance, they can open and close doors rather than mindlessly just bashing them down like pretty much all the other variants. But neither of them wear any clothing whatsoever.
Their dogs are just hanging there.
But oh dude, it's disgusting. You literally see everything. But the thing about the twins is that they seem to like ambushing targets in like longer corridors, and they use the fact that they're twins to flank Miles. They don't make really a lot of noise. They're pretty much silent killers, and they don't run or talk. They just kind of walk slowly and follow you.
I like that. Yeah, they do walk slowly towards you. They don't run. I like that one part where you're in the dark in the showers of the of the prison block, and there's that moment where you walk out the window and they're all like sarcastic, like, "Oh, he just vanished." They're like having a conversation, and it's hilarious.
They're just gone. They're just absolutely gone. And one of the scariest things about this game isn't, running into these into these inmates, it's losing them, because you don't know when they're going to pop up again next, and it's just...
And you never know if an inmate is going to be violent and try to hunt you, or if it's just going to be a regular inmate that's just going to talk to you or just hang out. There's that one in the prison block that just follows you, and he's completely wrapped up, and I'm like, does he want to kill me? And like, but he just can't because his hands are tied up because he just keeps following you. It's so creepy. But then I was kind of like, maybe he just wants to be my friend.
Nope, he does not want to be your friend.
No, I think he has some dialogue, and at first I couldn't tell if that was him or some of the inmates in the cells around you, but I think it's him, and he's just following you, talking to you, and I'm like, dude.
Oh my god. Can we talk about Richard Traeger for a second?
Yes, I want to.
Terrifying Dr. Rick Traeger, the secular maniac, the school douchebag.
You know, I actually kind of liked him at first. You know, he's like talking to you, and he's like he has this kind of wit and charm about him, and he's just talking. But then he starts like picking up different instruments and like testing them, and you're like, oh shit, he's gonna experiment on me, and he straight up cuts off your fucking fingers, man. And the rest of the game, your hands are all bloodied up and fingerless, or you know, you're missing a couple of them.
Yes, I know, and it's horrific. Like, they show everything, and that I'm telling you, Red Barrels does not hold back. But so the whole part of the game where he's chasing you, you're in like this little infirmary-esque setting in the asylum, and it's hard to get away from him.
By the way, he's not a doctor either.
Well, no, that's
What is it from Toy Story? I do not believe that man has a medical license.
No, he's just an insane variant who experiments on patients in order to gain more knowledge about biology. And, you know, who can blame him? You know, biology's cool, but not that way. You know, he's insane. He runs around with, like, this pair of shears, the same shears that he uses to cut off your fingers. It's horrific. But, dude, can we talk about the way he dies?
Yes.
Like, that joke is too funny. He while chasing you, he literally gets crushed by an elevator. It's so...
Yeah, I think like Final Destination, that one elevator scene in one of the movies. I don't remember which one, but yeah, it's basically just that. And I love the little joke that that Miles makes if you record it. It's like how to make a Traeger smoothie press or something, squeeze.
How to make a Traeger smoothie. I don't remember that. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. That's what he says. It's really hilarious. Yeah, that whole section is actually really intimidating for me because you're kind of stuck in this area with Traeger, who is a bit more, you know, sane and calm and you know, deviant than any of the other variants you faced up to that point. You know, like I said, like the twins, he opens doors, he walks, you know, and he can figure shit out. He's not like dumb, but you're kind of trapped in this area with him, and you have to go, and I think you have to get the key for the elevator, and then you can open the elevator and leave.
Yeah, Outlast. Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to kind of finesse your way, and a lot of this game is just finessing your way, especially a lot of the sequences with Chris Walker involve him sort of charging you, and you sort of juggernaut him, you give him the runaround in kind of more open rooms, and that way you can get around him, because more often than not, he's right in front of where you need to get to. And he comes out of nowhere every time.
Oh, dude, he's terrifying. And there's like one area of the game. I'm pretty sure most people that are choosing to listen to this episode of this podcast have either seen a playthrough or have played this game themselves. And since this game is like 8 years old, we don't really have to do cut and dry start to finish. We could just talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
But the whole religious aspect of this game really bothers me. You know, like Father Martin. Come on. Father Martin is horrifying. He's just, Martin, I forget, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's like Martin Achenbad or something. And one of his quotes from the game that absolutely, like, I will never forget this. It's terrifying, and it gave me chills that ran down my spine. It was like, I see, merciful God, you have sent me an apostle. Guard your life, son, you have a calling. He's talking to Miles.
Yeah.
He's talking to Miles. He's basically an ally to Miles in the game and a major character.
Mostly an ally. I mean, you're never quite sure what his motives are, but he's the closest thing you have to an ally. And he does seem to be aiding you and letting you go, but he wants you to do something first and see some things. And so he kind of sets up this whole elaborate thing for you. And even the twins are under his direction and a lot of the other inmates.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, they're laying things. I like towards the end of the game, you know, you sort of see them setting things up for you and opening doors and whatnot. And of course, he's painting blood on the walls and having you follow the blood to get to where, you know, to find him. And he does give you quite a bit of a runaround. I remember there was one part he's like, "Meet me outside." I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna get out of here." Nope, it's just the courtyard. And by the way, he's not even there. You just go right back in and you meet him in the female ward. I'm like, come on, dude.
Yep. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but at the same time, you know that following him is probably your best bet at getting out.
Yeah.
And so you just got to go with it. And he honestly puts you in a lot of really crappy positions, but Miles is able to finesse and get out, you know. And honestly, Dude, the character deaths in this game, they're horrifying, but they're also kind of hilarious.
Yeah, dude straight up crucifies himself and then has one of the inmates light him on fire. And you just watch it. And he even tells you, like, record this. You know, and so I did. I recorded it with my broken ass camera, and and you know, like it was very interesting. And I guess, you know, he starts this whole religion up worshiping the Wall Rider, and it seems that all of the inmates sort of follow him. I mean, he kind of is the leader of this place. I mean, I imagine that there are inmates around that are just doing their own thing, but most of all of them seem to kind of be under his direction. Even Traeger, who is clearly secular and doesn't believe in it, seems to be operating underneath him.
Yeah, like he's basically like the head honcho for all of these crazies in the asylum.
Yeah.
And honestly, watching him crucify himself and then be immolated by the variants on his command, like them straight up light him on fire, it's just... and you watch everything happen, and they don't hold back. Like, you'll hear me say that a lot. Like, this game does not hold back. They're telling you this is a survival horror experience, and that is exactly what they mean.
It definitely plays on psychological horror quite a bit. There are jump scares, but more so than that, it's the disturbing setting that you're in, and it's the thought that at any point something could be stalking you or jump scare you.
Yep. Absolutely. They do not hold back.
And it's dark, and I like that one part in the game where you actually lose your camera, and it actually tells you, like, you need your camera to navigate the darkness, doesn't let you progress. And so for a little while, you're actually caught without your camera. You have to go get it back. And that's actually one of the cooler parts of the game, because you feel a little naked. You feel a little defenseless. Like, you do have to walk through some dark corridors, and you're like, man, you know, what's going to come out at me? And as soon as you pick it up, of course, there are inmates there.
Of course there are. Why wouldn't there be?
So you walk into this dark room not knowing, and then you turn it on and they're there, and it's a chase after that. There are a lot of chases. And one cool thing about that game is that, about that moment in the game, is that after that point, after you pick up the camera, it's broken for the rest of the game. So I found myself holding up the camera a lot less, unless I needed the night vision or there was something I felt like was worth recording.
Yeah, that crack on the screen's annoying.
The crack on the screen and the fuzz that comes every once in a while, you get red lines on the screen, definitely obscures your view quite a bit. And so you kind of have to, I had to put the camera down several times in order to be able to see properly.
It adds to the... aspect, or what is it, the aesthetic of the game. Ladies and gentlemen, the cough.
That's the weed cough. I've got a Delta 8 pin, so. Also, I do recommend playing this game high. It actually will definitely add to the creepy atmosphere. Play at night with all the lights off alone.
Yeah, that's going to be a no from me, dog. That's going to be a huge no from me. Okay, so what was your favorite chapter in the game? Like, you've got the administration block, the prison block, the sewer, the male ward, the courtyard, the female ward. You go back to the administration block, and then you're in the underground lab where you run into William Hope, a.k.a. Billy, a.k.a. the Wall Rider.
Difficult to say. What sticks out to me quite a bit is the sewers. It's kind of a short chapter, but it's just you versus Chris Walker in this contained environment. You have a couple objectives set up, and usually this game will have you do that. It'll be like, go here and do these things, and then come back to turn this valve. There's a lot of that, but what's crazy is usually when you go to these spots, whatever variant is stalking you at the time usually can hear you and come after you. But the sewer segment sticks out to me because Chris Walker just is everywhere you turn, and you're kind of in this I want to say what's the word, claustrophobic environment.
Oh yeah, it feels like there's almost no way out,
and your field of view is kind of obscured as well, so
absolutely. And it's hard because not only are you trying to escape from him, but you're also trying to like puzzle your way out. You've got to flush the water in the sewer by turning 2 valves, and then you got to use the ladder to access the lower junction. And the whole time you're basically just trying to find a way out while running from Chris. And it's terrifying. You're actually right. Like, the sewer is probably one of my favorite parts of the game. But, dude, honestly, the underground lab is...
That was going to be the next one I was going to say. Yes, the underground lab.
The underground lab is my favorite part of the game. Literally right after Father Martin, crucifies himself in the chapel of the administration block, you go down the elevator, the one that Martin made to access the underground laboratory.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They don't tell you that. You think you're going to leave. You're riding this elevator thinking you're going to freedom. It stops on the first floor of the administration block where you can open the doors and get the fuck out, and then it keeps going, and you're like, oh, fuck.
Yep.
I'm not getting out of here. And then you go to the underground lab, and everything comes together. But go ahead and get back into it.
No, you're good. It's crazy because once you enter the lab, the first thing you see is the dead guards at the front desk. And it's basically where Martin had shown him the security footage of the Wall Rider throwing and smashing the guards to their deaths. And so not only do you see the dead guards, you see how they died and what killed them. And you get another taste of this terrifying thing that you're going to have to eventually, go up against, or at least run from, because you can't fight.
Out of all of the stalkers in the game, the Wall Rider is the most difficult because he's fast, he can kill you in just a couple hits, and he can go through walls. Doors do slow him down, but not nearly as much as the other variants.
He's also sound triggered, and that part of the game, the Underground Lab, demonstrates that really well. Once you go through a bunch of hallways, you eventually reach a door that triggers the alarm. And once that alarm goes off, he's after you. And it chases you until you come to the set of double doors. And then once you get to those double doors, you are grabbed by Chris Walker. And you're just immediately thrown to the side. Yeah. But right before Walker can kill you, he's grabbed by the Wall Rider from behind, thrown into the walls repeatedly, and just ripped apart.
Fuck yeah! I was so happy to see that. It was just the greatest thing. There's that moment of terror because you're pinned between the two of them, and then the Wall Rider just beats Chris Walker the fuck up. And then you realize, oh, this is the most powerful thing in the game. It can also appear anywhere. I mean, I say before that, the other variants seem to come out of nowhere, but off screen, they're probably still walking wherever they need to go, short of a couple, jump scare segments. But the Wall Rider literally can and does teleport around. It appears exactly, where it's going to hinder you, and you're running, and you have even less defense against it. I don't even think there's anywhere to hide in the underground lab, is there?
No, you're constantly moving the entire time. And honestly, watching the Wall Rider kill Chris Walker, you're kind of sympathetic. And that's why once it starts happening, Miles automatically pulls out the camcorder to record the event. And the event that basically the achievement that you get for recording it is the death of the soldier, which is basically the soldier finally meets his end not really facing the Wall Rider. Billy just kind of rips him apart.
Yeah, there's no competition. What were you gonna say?
Basically, once you're going further into the underground laboratory, you enter a small room with more dead guards, and there's a wall of glass that's dividing you and Rudolph Vernick. Now, Rudolph Vernick is, he's basically
the mastermind.
He's the mastermind behind the whole thing. One of his aliases is Asset 14866. He's a senile Nazi, the Crypt Keeper, yada yada, the Doctor, and all that stuff. And
he does seem to regret what they did, and it's definitely out of his control now. I mean, he's the one that tasks you with ending it all and killing Billy. One thing I thought was interesting was that he mentioned working with Alan Turing. And so their technology, it was their minds that basically put this technology together. Alan Turing, of course, being the real life figure that operated in World War II. He was played by Benedict Cumberbatch in that one movie.
Yeah, absolutely. But that whole thing with Rudolph Vernick, him basically explaining how he regrets what happens, he basically looks at you, tells you, hey, Billy Hope has to die because he's the current host of the Wall Rider, and killing him would, quote, end the Wall Rider. And so Miles is like, yeah, I'll do it. Even though I haven't been able to fight or do anything this entire game, I'm just going to carry out this dude's wishes and end Billy's life.
You want to know the mistake you're making here, buddy? You think you're gonna find the truth. You think you'll uncover something, and everything will just fall into place. Some grand revelation that'll make sense of all these unspeakable horrors. That'll explain what could drive men to such creative extremes of inhumanity. I hate to be the one to break the bad news, but even when you think you understand what's happening here, you're only gonna be halfway down the rabbit hole. It's always been the case that whoever's holding the money gets to say what the truth is. But then what happens when all the money's gone? When everything is based on debt, on credit? Come on, buddy. You can guess this one. It's faith. Money is a matter of faith. All we were ever trying to do is sell you the dream. But you can't make a deal if you've got nothing to bargain with. You gotta be inside the dream to buy it. You gotta have faith. And that's what I'm here for. To make you believe.
The game progresses, you move deeper into the lab, and you find Billy in like this glass sphere that's keeping him alive by different pieces of equipment. You cut the life support fluid reservoir, and it disables the power to the lab. The Wall Rider appears again, chasing you throughout, and once you disable the power, the Wall Rider grabs you and you're basically jumping from, oh god, this is like so intense. While you're running, you're basically jumping from one catwalk to another. And then he catches you while you're doing this and starts throwing you around. And basically after that, you get up and start moving towards the main chamber.
But I was kind of like, thanks for the shortcut, dude. I mean, I made a quick descent.
Absolutely, yeah. Even though there's no way, honestly, there's no way Miles should have lived through half the stuff that happened to him in this game. I felt like he should have bled out once Traeger started cut off his fingers. Because, there was really no way for Miles to, cauterize or stop the bleeding.
Yeah, dude never even stopped to, bandage his hands or anything. I mean, he just kept going. Still parkouring, still running quite a bit. I mean, while he isn't a fighter at all, he is pretty athletic. And I do appreciate that. I mean, it gives you some kind of advantage. But what's also kind of adds to the atmosphere is, his constant breathing. Whenever he's more scared and he's in an environment, he'll sort of gasp. Or when he's been running for a while, you can hear him get out of breath. And it's actually really cool just witnessing all of that from first person. And it really immerses you in the experience. Definitely recommend playing this game with headphones on because you'll get that full experience. Plus, it helps with determining where the variants are because of the 3D audio.
Oh, absolutely. This is one of the more immersive horror games that has ever been released. The graphics and the sound combined with headphones and a really nice screen give an experience that's unlike any other.
It depends a lot on that too. Getting through this game depends on you listening for audio cues of, to listen for footsteps and know when to exit your hiding place because, you can't see very well in the dark and you can't see very well when you're hiding. And a lot of the game is really just listening and waiting and, being somewhat strategic, but you never quite know what's going to happen when you get out of your hiding spot or when you go down a dark corridor.
No, you do not.
At any moment, you may need to turn around and just run a different direction, close a door, barricade it, or hide underneath something. It is constant anxiety-inducing moments like this. I like that one part in, I think, the mail ward where you've got the 3 guys coming after you, and you've got to keep on moving and barricading doors and finding your way around until you ditch them.
Yeah.
That part was cool. And also the courtyard area. I mean, I mentioned this earlier, but going outside, you think that you're kind of it's like the closest, it's the biggest sniff of freedom that you get in the game up to that point. And you feel like you're just, there's a way for you to get out, but there's not. You're stuck in the courtyard. In fact, it's another moment where Chris Walker comes out, and I believe this happens in the sewers as well at a later point while you're going around in the water. But in these two moments, it's completely dark, and you just sort of hear his chains. And what's crazy is I never knew exactly where he was at. I couldn't determine. I just knew that I could run into him. He could be behind me. I don't know. I just hear his fucking chains rattling.
Yeah, and during this part of the game, that's actually the first time you encounter Traeger. These variants are chasing you through, several rooms, and you can hear them like bashing on the door, yelling, "Wants meat! Wants meat!" do you remember this?
Yes!
That's the part that was like super creepy to me. They were like, "Wants meat! Wants meat!" It's
horrifying. Yeah, and that's right. That's where Traeger saves you by sending you the dumbbell, but then he,
he's like, "Who's down there? You're not one of them, are you? Quick, get in the dumbwaiter if you want to live." And you're like, "Okay, cool." And you get in the dumbwaiter and you get down there. He's like, "You made the right choice there, buddy." And then just beats you to the point where you just can't walk, straps you to the wheelchair, takes you around the asylum and mockingly showing him the exit saying, "Run free."
Yeah, he's like, do you want some fresh air? Of course, that's the entrance to the courtyard that you later come across. So it really wasn't actually to the asylum, but it is a nice like teasing moment. Like, oh shit. I think up to that point too, whenever you do go outside, it's the first time in the game where I really extensively went through batteries because there is almost no light to go through. It's also the first time you actually see the wall rider face to face, and you're like, "What the fuck is that? A ghost? What's going on?" Like, when did this game get supernatural? It's terrifying.
Dude, it really is terrifying.
What does Miles say? He's like, "Oh my god, dear God, help me!" Like I think I've seen the wall rider.
Dear God, help me.
Yeah, because up to that point, you'd heard about it. You saw that little footage, but you never quite knew what was going on. At that point, you see it. Now, the Wall Rider isn't a ghost. In the underground lab, those pieces finally come together, and you find out it's nanotechnology, which has been in development for much longer, for decades at that point, since World War II. And that's what Traeger and Alan Turing were working on, was this nanotechnology, and that's what the Wall Rider is. And then there's also the morphogenic engine, which is like an algorithm that does something, I think. I don't remember. Like,
it definitely does something.
It does something. Sure. There's like hypnosis going on. It's a cool and intricate story, and I think to really get all of it, you have to, look in nooks and crannies and find those documents hiding around and record things to hear, Miles' thoughts on things as well.
Yeah, and to be honest, listening to Miles record and, run through everything, you really get that sense of dread that he's feeling. Watching all of this stuff unfold, realizing that all of this is part of just some greater purpose to create the Wall Rider, but it gets out of hand and all of them end up dead. It's really a lot to take in, You know
what the first part of the game I got stuck in, actually? Or I couldn't pick up the game for a while because it was just too difficult and a little too terrifying.
Where?
Was the basement in the administration block.
The basement, yes,
with the generator, because it's the first time in the game where you're thrown into this kind of situation, but you're thrown into the dark, and you've got to turn on the generator, but first you've got to turn on two, like, sub-generators or something, and then a pump or something else, and so you've got to you got to go and do all three of those things, but as soon as you turn on one of those things, a variant comes after you, because he hears you turning on the things, and so you're running through the dark, not ever really sure where this variant is, except when he's chasing you, trying to accomplish things, and it is just that it's very difficult.
It's easy. It's kind of easy to hide from him, though. He's not. He's kind of quick, but you're a lot quicker than he is, and you can easily just hide under one of the beds that's in, like, what is it, like 2 or 3 different rooms that you run into for the pumps?
Yeah, but my problem was that once I got out of hiding, I was never sure where he was, and he would always spot me. And I think in the final attempt that I finally got it, and I started to actually figure out the mechanics of the game. In many ways, it's that first kind of tutorial segment where you get introduced to these mechanics. And it's where you sort of figure out exactly what you have to do. Well, the trick is you got to break the line of sight, close a door, and then hide, and then kind of, wait for his footsteps to walk away, and then you can go about and finish what you're doing.
Absolutely. It's one of the scariest parts of the game, to be honest, being down in that super dark basement trying to figure everything out. And that's the part that took me the longest. It wasn't something that was just easily right in front of you because of all the different things you had to do, the hiding, the running, the turning the pumps to reactivate the generator. It's difficult, and I can understand why that's one of the things that kind of made you have to take a break from the game, because it's not easy at all.
Yeah, and then after that, I sort of just barreled through the game. It's not red barreled through it, you might say.
Wow, cute.
But no, it's a game that it's not very long. You can get through it relatively quickly. And there is quite a bit of replay value in that, there are additional notes and documents to find in the game that you might have missed. Batteries are also around every corner, so that's why it's important to check every nook and cranny, because you never know how many batteries you're going to need later. Like I said, at one point you get thrown outside in complete darkness, and you better have collected some batteries, because otherwise you're fucked.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, the higher the difficulty you choose, the more rare batteries are, and that's what adds to the replayability, because yes, you could do a higher difficulty, but it's one of those games where I've beaten Metroid Dread a couple of times, and the hard mode only really counts because the enemies do more damage and they have a little bit more health. But once you get to the end of the game and you have your abilities, it's really not that hard at all. This game, the difficulty is raised because resources are far more scarce. Like, it is hard to find batteries in hard mode, and so those dark, you have to be very you have to use your batteries very sparingly in harder difficulties of the game. And so when you're outside, or when you're in the basement, or when you're nearing the end of the game towards the administration block, you have to be very conservative with your batteries. And it's very hard because most of the game is dark, especially when you're running from, Chris or Traeger. You have to use batteries in order to see. But it's really hard to find them. I think in most of the chapters, on the normal difficulty, there's like 6 or 7 batteries per chapter that you can pick up. And on the hard difficulty, there's like maybe 2, and they're hidden extremely well. Well.
And isn't there a nightmare difficulty where you can only hold on to 1 battery at a time or something?
I think so, but I will never play it.
Yeah, the batteries adds a little bit of strategy to it. Also, knowing when to reload the battery, because you can wait for it to run out all the way and be the most conservative with your resources. But if you're about to be if you're in an area where there's a variant that could be stalking you, you're going to want to make sure that you have plenty of light and you don't have to stop and reload. So there's a little bit of that element of strategy in there of like, okay, my battery's most of the way drained, and at any point I could be running, so I need to go ahead and reload it now.
Yeah, it's really hard to determine when you're actually supposed to reload. Because, you would think that you would want to be conservative, but like you just said, there are times where you're going to have to reload it. But on that nightmare difficulty, you have to use the battery and then find a new one before you can reload it.
Yeah,
and
that's got to be difficult.
It's seemingly impossible.
And I wonder if the variants are any more aggressive in the higher difficulties, or any more intelligent.
They're probably faster. I haven't played it, and I will not play it.
Because you can outrun all of them in the game, I think. They won't catch up to you. But
if they do, you're dead.
You're dead.
Yeah, in the higher difficulties, they definitely do a lot more damage. So you have to be very, very careful as to not...
I think in Nightmare, everybody's like a one-hit kill or something.
Which, makes sense.
You can... And this game is definitely playable in that sense. I could see avoiding taking damage completely, but, I was never perfect. But the trick is kind of, finessing your way and using open rooms and areas where you can kind of circle around, and also trapping them. Closing doors, the variants that are a little more violent and dumb, and what's the word? Just completely insane.
Oh, dude, they're all completely insane, dude. Everybody, it's an insane asylum. They're all bat crap crazy.
But the ones that are worse, are the ones that have to break down the doors. So doors can really slow down those guys because they have to give it like several pushes before the door breaks down, and then you can't use that door anymore. But it's effective at giving yourself a little bit more time to get into that hiding spot or do whatever you need to do in that room. And if you're careful enough, you don't even have to go into a hiding spot. If you're in a dark area, you can kind of hide in a corner, and usually an enemy will pass by you, but you're never quite sure if they're going to spot you or not. You're like, please don't spot me. Please don't spot me. I do like the areas in the game where you can barricade yourself in. gives you a little bit of security, but usually those areas you're kind of trapped in there. There's nowhere else to go. So eventually you have to unbarricade yourself or leave the area, and
Yeah.
it's a very, very brief respite from the chaos.
Very. It's very rare to get, time to just, breathe. You have to keep moving, because if not, the game has like a timer where if you sit in one area for too long, the variant that's predominant for the area, whether it's Traeger or, Chris Walker, they will eventually come to where you're at, and you have to get moving. It's unforgiving. It is even on the normal difficulty, it is unforgiving. Like, they do not care.
For the most part, they have patrol routes, and you'll notice that, except when they find you, they'll mostly stick to those routes. But, like, if you make too much noise or whatever, and that definitely plays a factor, is, walking versus running versus crouching, in order to avoid making noise, because if they do hear you, they'll come to your location and investigate.
Yes, they will.
Funny enough, they don't react to the flashlight, and I spent most of the game, or at least half of it, thinking that they did.
Yeah.
And so I would turn off my flashlight when they were nearby, but it come to find out that you can have the flashlight like right next to them, and they don't give a fuck. They won't notice.
They won't. I mean, you'd think they would, but they definitely don't.
You'd think they would, so I'm happy that I played most of the game thinking that. I hope that's fixed in Outlast 2, because that kind of seems like...
It is.
Okay.
Outlast 2 is so much harder and so much more terrifying, dude. That game, Ash, they say that these games are not for the faint of heart, but Outlast 2 is in its own realm. Like, that game is... I love horror games, but I will never play it again. It is truly, truly mortifying. It's a very demonic experience. It's not something I ever want to experience again, because the whole thing is centered around a cult in, like, this mountainous, abandoned town that basically has the same variants and people that were in Mount Massive, except it's an entire town of people that all believe in one faith. And I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point, but, like, that is not a game I will ever play again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely going to want to check it out. And if this game, I mean, this game is disturbing enough as it is, and if they amp the ante on that, that would be crazy, because there is content warning, straight up corpse fucking in this game. It happens. There's necrophilia.
Yeah, like, no, I'll tell you this, Ash. And for those of you listening to this episode, I'm sure if you've played both of these games, you will agree with me. Whistleblower, the extension of the Outlast story, where you're Wayland Park, that game is scarier than Outlast.
I haven't played Whistleblower yet. I was gonna ask if you wanted to talk about that, because I bought the DLC. I just haven't touched it yet.
Yeah, we could touch on it a little bit. It's been a long time since I've looked at the story, so I don't remember much about it. But here, I can pull it up real quick, and we can touch on it a little bit, because
it's kind of a prequel / interquel. I know it takes place beforehand, and you're playing the guy that ends up giving the tip to Miles, I believe, right?
Yeah, you're playing as Wayland Park. He's the one that basically outs the Murkoff Corporation, and because of this, he gets sent to Mount Massive Asylum. And so, as Wayland Park, you start the game as a patient, and they're like running tests on you, and you break out because something happens, and it creates a commotion in the asylum, and you're able to escape and find your way out there. And Miles actually dies at the end of Outlast, but with Wayland, you actually survive. So,
well, Miles becomes the wall rider is what happens.
Well, he's dead. Like, who he is dead. He becomes the new wall rider because the wall rider has to have a host in order to survive.
What a twist ending, by the way. That was actually really cool. And the way that it ends is, you exit out, you've accomplished your task of cutting off Billy's life support, but the wall rider like enters you, and Miles is just barely walking around. He doesn't look like he's got too much longer, but you're moving down the corridor, and then suddenly you're confronted by Traeger and like a SWAT team. And I guess Traeger is a fucking bastard and shot you in the back because he couldn't have you be a witness or something. But very quickly, after you get gunned down, he says, whatever the German word is. I think it's like, oh my God. Something.
Gott in Himmel.
Gott in Himmel, yeah. And he's like, that sounds like God in heaven, actually. But anyway, he's like, you're the new host. And then the screen cuts to black, and you just hear the screams of the SWAT team and everything, and you're like, oh shit.
Oh, okay. So whistleblower, basically you're Wayland Park. You are the whistleblower. You're the one that outs the Murkoff Corporation by sending that email. But, as you do that, I forget the name of the guy that sends you to Mount Massive Asylum. He's basically like, look what we found here. And basically he has the guards beat you up, and because of some of the stuff you say, he's like, oh, it seems we need to have you admitted. And so Wayland gets admitted into Mount Massive Asylum. But one of the main antagonists, I'm not going to say too much about it because I really want you to explore it and enjoy it. But one of the main, actually the main antagonist to me is Eddie Gluskin. Eddie Gluskin is also known as the Groom. Basically, he is a variant who ruthlessly pursues you, Wayland Park, with the intention of making him his bride. And when I say this, there's a lot. Basically, I won't say much, but he basically takes steps to make Wayland his wife. And I will say that it involves surgery. So you just need to, I wouldn't say you need to play it, but if you want to see that, you can.
Okay. That sounds terrifying, and I definitely want to check it out, because I know that the story also ends up kind of crossing into Miles' story as well.
Yes.
Part of the game goes, midway through the point to where Miles has entered the asylum. So, but yeah, I want to check out Whistleblower, because that sounds insane. And if it's even scarier than the original game, then God help me.
Most of the game is much more intense. Wayland is smaller. He's a little bit slower, too. So, and they expand upon that in the game. You'll learn about that. And so it's not as easy to get away from the variants. And Eddie Gluskin is, ooh, boy. Basically, he makes his first appearance at the start of the game in the underground lab, being forced against his will to enter one of the spheres that Billy was in order to undergo painstaking restraint and experiments. And while that's happening, Wayland Park is actually there working on one of the computers for debugging to allow the experiment to happen. And before they finally restrain Eddie, he runs up to the glass begging for help, and he tells Wayland that he has the power to stop all of it before being forced again to go back in. And so from the beginning of the game, you have a connection to Eddie Gluskin. And so when he sees you, he knows that you tried to, save him, and so he wants to make you his bride. Oh. It's a lot.
So it's coming from a good place. It's just fucked up.
I mean, yes, but no.
That actually does sound very Outlast, though, to have something that's stalking you for the intent of making you their bride. Because, Traeger's trying to experiment on you. Chris Walker just wants to fuck you up. The twins, I don't know.
They basically, their shtick is that they are into the act of, silent killing. They basically want to slowly stalk and hunt down their prey. And once they catch them, they silently and slowly kill them with, machete-like blades that they both carry.
Why don't they just dick slap you? I mean, wouldn't that be hilarious if they just whip their dick out at you wah wah?
I would rather get hit with the machete, to be honest. I don't want to get hit by that, even though they've been naked the whole game, and so there's room to breathe. So it probably wouldn't be as traumatizing. It would still be horrible. But I mean, I have the backstory for Eddie if you want it. It's not really stuff that you learn in game. And so basically all that's really known is that in his early life he was sexually abused by his father and his uncle, and they took photos of it. Oh. And the event was a matter of medical and public record, and Gluskin wasn't even old enough to know how wrong it was, just that it hurt. His father and uncle were eventually incarcerated, and as a coping mechanism for his traumatically violent upbringing, Gluskin would claim that he was raised in a Leave It to Beaver home. Prior to being admitted to Mount Massive, Eddie was a misogynist and a serial killer who mutilated women. And there are implications that his insanity stems from being sexually abused as a child. And Yeah, so once you play through Outlast, once you run into him, you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's very the only word I can really think of, Ash, is grotesque. It's incredibly grotesque, and it's now that I think about it, the first time I played these games, Outlast I played for the first time in 2016. I had an Xbox One, and it was out on the Xbox, and I had just gotten paid from my job, and so I was like, yeah, why not? I'd love to curl up in a ball and cry for an entire night. And so I played through the entire game in one sitting. The entire game. I started playing at like 9 p.m. and I think I finished around 4 a.m. roughly. It didn't take me long to get through it in the grand scheme of things, but that's still a huge chunk of time. Whistleblower, I played it as soon as it came out. And Outlast 2, I actually went to my friend Jaden's house, and we stayed up all night playing through the entire game, and we were both mentally scarred at the end of it.
Man.
Dude, it was horrifying. Like, there was one point where Jaden actually, like, got so scared that he, like, gave me a hug. And I was like, yep, we need to take a break. And so we paused it, went to the kitchen, and made some frozen burritos.
That was me and my friend Steven when we played PT for the first time. It was funny. Like, we were literally, like, we started, like, holding each other, like, no homo.
Oh. But yeah, like, if you haven't played Outlast and you love, like, survival horror games, this is a really, really good game to get into. But be warned, it is very, very graphic, and there's a lot of disturbing images and scenes in the game. So go in knowing that you have to, harden your heart, because it's going to be graphic. If you are just an adamant horror game player, it's a good experience. I wouldn't say it's a good experience. It's a traumatizing experience, but it's a horror game that Red Barrels truly brings the best and worst out of. When it comes to horror games, I would say that Red Barrels is the top company for it, because there is no other horror game that even comes close to touching, the absolute sheer terror that you experience playing these games. And what a better day to record this on than Halloween. Spoopy Day. It's really cool. We were originally going to record this on like Thursday or Friday of last week, but I'm kind of glad that it worked out that we got to record it today, because it's our Halloween episode, and I don't think I even got to participate on the Halloween episode last year when we did it.
No, that was just me and Megan on Until Dawn. But yeah, I mean, it was cool. I actually was looking forward to playing Outlast. I think since last Halloween, we had already decided this is what we were going to do this year. And I've been excited about it ever since, just because I'd heard about it. But I only picked it up most recently. I mean, as for my final thoughts, again, this is a very not only terrifying but disturbing game. Obviously not for everyone if you're faint of heart, or it's not for the faint of heart. I will say that much.
No, it's not.
But if you're sensitive to these sorts of things, like psychological horror, disturbing sexual content, graphic violence, then maybe this game might be a little much. But if you are a horror game fan, I think this is a must play.
Oh, absolutely. I will say this, though. You have been warned. If you want to play this game, if you like psychological horror, then this is a good game to play. But tread lightly. Because this game, I love horror games, and this game shook me to my core. Like, it gave me... I'm 24 years old. It gave me nightmares, man. It really did. It gave me nightmares, and it made me bother to be alone for a little while, just because of how intense and dark the game is. But other than that, it's great.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with all of that. It is a very, very intense game. Definitely a must-play for any horror game fans. I intensely enjoyed it. I can't wait to play the DLC and the sequel as well. Or maybe I can wait, and I'm also a little bit terrified too. But needless to say, I mostly played this during the day or when I had someone around. But if you want the full experience, though, like I said, the whole like alone at night, I mean, you will get it. You are in for a ride of your life with Outlast.
Oh, you're in for a very rude awakening. Like, this game is merciless and does not... It doesn't hold your hand. You are on your own. in one of the most terrifying settings that a video game can produce.
And the fact that you can't fight back, the fact that you have to run and hide is what makes this game more terrifying and plays on that psychological aspect. Even late in the game, when you go into the underground lab and, like, you've seen a lot of graphic shit up to that point, but I think the Wall Rider most brutally kills its victims. I mean, some of them that are like top halves are completely eviscerated. They look like they exploded.
Yep, it is a merciless experience to have, and you better prepare your heart because it's not. Yeah, I'm getting chills just thinking about it, man. Honestly, so that's what makes this kind of like a perfect game to talk about on Halloween. A lot of people love spoopy season, and what better way to give our spoopy opinions than to talk about Outlast.
Yeah, you know what? I think what I'll do for the bonus round, because I think I'm just going to stream something tonight. So I want to stream the Outlast Whistleblower, and maybe I'll live stream it. So stay tuned for that tonight at Halloween. I'll probably try to do something later.
Yeah. Ash, I'm not working tomorrow because I'm going to be going to get my car situation figured out. So I would love to join you for that if you are interested.
Dude, for sure, man.
So, but guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, happy Halloween. We love having you here. Ash, do you have any final thoughts before we close this bad boy out?
No, but everybody have a very safe Halloween. If you're choosing to go out and be around people because, like us, you've been vaccinated or you've been carefully social distancing, then yeah, just be safe. Check your Halloween weed and make sure you don't have any candy in it.
Oh, that was wonderful. Oh, but yeah, guys, stay safe. Today, Halloween is a fun holiday, but a lot of people do use it to do a lot of really horrible things. And, that's where a lot of these games, get their ideas from, is from sick people that like to do horrible things. So please just be careful, stay safe. We love all of you guys, and we appreciate you so much for tuning in and listening to us. And while we do love the aspect of horror, while we do love the aspect of horror, we also love the people that listen, and we want you guys to be safe and happy and healthy
and have fun. Have fun tonight. For those of our listeners near Mount Massive in Colorado, shout out.
Yeah, you guys stay away from that place, please, if it ever existed. I don't know if that's a real place, but
yeah, Mount Massive is a place. The asylum isn't.
Okay.
But Mount Massive is an actual mountain. If you've ever been to Colorado, it is I think it's like the second biggest mountain in the Rocky Mountains.
Okay.
Or something like that, but it is definitely massive. I've seen it with my own eyes.
I've seen it with my own eyes. Let me look at you with my own eyes. So, before we go, make sure that you are checking us out on anywhere you can get your podcasts. We're on Spotify, Apple Music. Ash, where else can they find us?
So, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on social media. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Hit us up in the DMs if you'd like to collaborate. Then definitely reach out to us if you're a gamer or podcaster or just somebody who wants to have a good time on Collateral Gaming or Collateral Cinema. Our next episode is going to be part 2 of Metroid Dread, where we're going to actually get into spoiler territory and finish talking about the game. Before that, I think I might be doing a Game Lunch episode on the new Guardians of the Galaxy game as well, because I'm playing it and I'm having a blast and I want to talk about it. And then after that, later next month, we will be talking about Superman: The New Adventures, or more colloquially known as Superman 64. Yes, the infamous bad game, Superman 64.
That game is just garbage. But yeah, guys, we appreciate you tuning in and listening to us. Happy Halloween, and until next time, I'm Zachary Gio.
And I'm Ashley Chancellor.
This is Collateral Gaming, and we are out.
Have a safe and happy Halloween, everybody.
Bye!
Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.